scared. That's the question. What more can they do to me? There's so much more to tell. I'm not going to be deterred. The next one's going to be a killer.
Mansfield today on a Tuesday, and it's the day that we usually take off during the week to look at things legal with our resident legal eagle, Advocate Lance Brogden. Lance, nice to have you with us.
Evening, Jim. How are you?
Yeah, all right, thank you. All right. A bit of a different legal show, this one today, because it concerns somebody who's just brought out his second book. The first book was called Inside the Belly of the Beast. The second book is called Surviving the Beast. It is the former Chief Operations Officer of Bosasa, Angelo Agrizzi, who joins us via Zoom. Mr. Agrizzi, thank you very much for consenting to talk to Mansfield today. We appreciate your time. Just to make things easier for us, I'm going to ask you two gentlemen, if you wouldn't mind, if we could just refer to each other for clarity by our first name. So, Mr. Agrizzi, if you wouldn't mind me calling you Angelo. I do not mind being called Jeremy. That's what my parents called me. And our learned advocate, I'm sure you don't mind if we call you Lance.
Not at all. I've been called far worse things than that.
Angelo, just to set some things in context here, and it's something, because this is going to be a fairly wide-ranging chat with you.
Sure.
Not only about the book, but your feelings about things that have happened as a result of the work you were doing.
Yes.
I just want to go way back in time and just set something in context here, because I didn't know, personally, I didn't know the Watson family. I knew of them very well because they came from the Eastern Cape, where I came from.
Yes.
The boys all went to Graham College, which is in the same town as my school, Kingswood College. I remember sitting on the side of the rugby field watching Cheeky Watson playing wing for Graham College first team.
Brilliant rugby player.
He was a brilliant rugby player. I think, I may stand under correction here, Advocate, and I will call you that now, because this is maybe a legal thing, but I do think at some stage my sister actually dated Cheeky Watson. But I'd have to get clarification on that one.
I'll take the fifth on that one.
The Watson family were their father was a lay preacher. He was quite a strict man, from what I understand, and he brought up his boys in a very moralistic manner. He was a very strong person on civil rights and human rights and all the rest of it. From what I understand, you come from a fairly similar sort of family background where you were a close-knit family as well. How did these two families, or members of these two families, get together, and all of this came out of it, as you describe in these two books? I just don't understand it.
Weird. We were anti each other for quite some time. I mean, Gavin Watson had a company called Diambu, and I was working with a company called Molope at the time. And, we worked together. We worked against each other, really. I mean, he would come and try and politicize the unions on the various mines where I was working. And, this is the strangest of all, is that what happened was, I eventually ended up working with the guy. And, things went well for quite some time. I mean, we worked together for nearly 10 years, and there wasn't any issues whatsoever. And then the bribery and the corruption started, and getting worse and getting worse and getting worse. And, that's eventually when I had enough of it. But you're 100% right. Two totally different families, different areas. And we got together, and what a mess.
How is this all, before I hand you over to Lance, how has this journey affected you personally?
Well, I mean, it's been hard on us. I mean, look at what's done to me. You know, I spent 52 days in ICU. I still can't walk properly. I'm on oxygen permanently. I have a medicine chest behind me, you know. So, yeah, it's affected me badly. It's affected my family. What can I say? It's not the first time they try to silence me. It's been a few times. And if you read the book, Surviving the Beast, I put a lot of the QR codes which refer to the threats that were made to me, verbal threats and recorded threats. These are from directors. These are not just a phone call in the middle of the night. We had those as well, but these are actual threats from directors saying we will take him out.
Can you give us your opinion on the process of the Zondo Commission of inquiry?
Look, I think the Zondo Commission of Inquiry was very, very necessary for the country. I think it was imperative that it was held. I have the utmost respect for Zondo and the team, Paul Pretorius, the legal team. I honestly believe that they're trying to make a difference. I really do. I think the process that I underwent with them was a costly process. People often think, you know, that our legal fees and that were paid by Zondo. That's not true. We had to pay them ourselves. So I think that, from my perspective, could have been assisted. We could have been assisted by Zondo. But I think that the process that we went through was fair, it was just, and there was a verification of absolutely everything that we said. So I'm sure they did that with all the other witnesses as well, even with the Gupta witnesses. And I think they did a great job. I really do.
Angelo, well, once again, from my side, thank you for joining us. I know these are uncomfortable discussions, and you've been through a long process here. Interestingly enough, I think the two books work in concert well. The first one at a strategic level, the second one at an operational level, and they do supplement each other and complement each other.
I'm glad you enjoyed
enough, yes, thank you, I did. And interesting enough, with the word basasu, being the Setswana word for the future, yes. Nobody would have thought the future would have been what the future ended up being, And a person who, I lived in Botswana for a long time, so there's another Setswana saying that says, Lomao lolo hinklapedi, lo tlaba kobola maroki, which directly translated means a seamstress who has a needle with two sharp ends will always leave blood on the blanket. In our world, we talk about, running with the hares and hunting with the hounds. And
yes.
When one gets to whistleblowing, and you did a lot of, and trying to explain the challenge of whistleblowing, it then shows how difficult it is, and you have to make a choice which side you're going to be on. And I think that's the one thing that came through what I read, what I know, and what I understand. So a question to you, at what moment, there must have been a critical a moment critique when you realize, wow, I am part of and caught up in something that is really working in a corrupt way. There must have been a day the light turned on and thought, wow, I probably saw it coming, or I was aware, but now I know this is really bad news. What was that moment in time?
Beginning of August 2016. I'd always known, and we had discussed it, and there'd been various of our senior management team that had come and sat with me and we spoke about it. One being the CFO, Andries van Tronde. We had spoken about it, and it got to a stage where, beginning of August 2016, I said, that's it, I've had enough. And I'd left. I'd resigned. I'd packed my bags. I'd gone. I'd just told Dr. Smith, who was at that stage a mentor to me, who was one of the founder members of Meritum, which then was sold to the ladies at Diambu. And I said to him, that's enough. I've had enough. I'm out of here. And I'd left. Unfortunately, Chicky Watson, a very good friend of mine, he's been a very good friend. And he was the one who convinced me to come back. But yes, it happened in the beginning of August.
As you said, you were aware that things were out of kilter for quite a while.
Yes, correct.
So I want to give one example from the book, and anybody who reads it. And I just want a bit more clarification because it is so interesting. So yes. The issue with the Duplo fence deal,
Yes.
It was brilliantly masterminded. If one thinks, and this is the way I read it, and I wasn't there, so it can help you, because this will have a lot of context of how big and complex these deals were. The tender was written such that only one product could be supplied.
Correct.
Right, so it was a very specified product. But cleverly enough, what your team cleverly did is allowed other fence manufacturers and suppliers to make use of that product in their tender.
That's right.
However, the real win was that you had the inside track and the pricing, you could do it at 40%, I can't remember exactly, 40% or cheaper.
It was 40%. It was
Right.
a 40% difference.
So my question is, when it gets to things like that are really, who was the mastermind behind those complex deals? If you'd help us, because it's very interesting how it unfolded like that, and then winning a tender of that massive quantum. How was it put together on the inside?
So the mastermind there, what happened there, if you read the book, I was sitting with my nephews playing little blocks, these little Lego type blocks called Duplo. And they phoned me up. They were in a meeting. It was Beta Fence, the directors from Belgium. It was the CEO of Beta Fence. It was the CFO of Beta Fence. It was Gavin Watson. It was Danny Mansell sitting in Cape Town in a meeting. And they phoned me up out of the blue and said, listen, how would you make the changes here? And I gave them my opinion, and that's how it came about. But the real masterminds were the actual manufacturers of the fence, and Danny Mansell and Gavin Watson.
Thank you. Now, it just shows, that these weren't willy-nilly little deals. It was the highest level and very complex thinking that puts these things together. The next
Correct,
point,
yeah.
and sorry, there's so much in your book, but I'm touching on things that I found intriguing and that you did expose, and you're helping expose it now even more in the public domain, face to face. The cash. Before I got to the point of understanding how you got hold of the cash, you can't just walk into a bank and ask for 4 or 5 million in cash. That doesn't work. But the bribes were given out in serious quantums at a time. And as you mentioned somewhere in one of the two books, I can't remember, how your hands were sore for you put the cash into the cash repository and physically large. And the one picture in your second book of that, I don't know, it's a fortune. These weren't 100,000 rand deals. These are multi-million rand amounts of cash. So
5 to 6 million a month.
Yeah. So when I got to the point, and I thought this is a very interesting thing, people don't understand that you can't just go fetch the cash. It doesn't appear from nowhere. It's in Gavin's vaults, etc., etc. How did it get there? Well, the story with the liquor outlets and how that was created. Would you just like to share a bit more on that? Because I think it will solve a lot of issues. Where did the cash come from to make these payments, or some of the cash?
Okay, so Jared Watson, the liquor outlet story is not entirely true. Jared Watson in the ENCA interview says, no, it came from liquor outlets which Bosasa was running. Well, liquor outlets did a maximum turnover of about 300,000 rand a month. So they would never come from there. Where the cash actually came from, and another reason, they wouldn't come from the liquor outlets, is because there's no ways you would collect cash from the liquor outlets only in 100 and 200 rand notes. Yeah. And all the cash that you see in front of on the screens, there's all 200 rand notes. Where the cash came from was through a source that had access to cash from transacting with liquor with a liquor supplier called, I think it was Jumbo Liquor at that stage. I can't remember exactly, but they got it from there, where they would cash up all the 100 rand notes and 200 rand notes and actually then sell them to Bosasa. And another one was through a cross-border company that used to deal with liquor cross-border. And what would happen is that supplier actually did our chicken supply as well. So all he would do was he would up the chicken invoice and supply the cash instead of supplying chicken. Simple as that.
Amazing. So, and bit by bit, I mean, you operational, you weren't the financial director, but you saw this unfolding, and you must have started getting more and more uncomfortable, because eventually, And you and I, fortunately enough, we come from the same. We're both East Rand boys. I'm also a Germiston boy. Strange.
Oh, good. You know Roxana Bakery?
Yeah, but I know that bakery very well. As a matter of fact, my father used to send me there as a youngster to go and get bread rolls. So I know it very well. But the point I'm trying to make is that we've been around, we've seen things, and at some point you must think, wow, these too many moving parts here. Something will fall between the cracks, and that must have taken a toll on your health and your whole life and your family as well. And I asked the question leading to the following. There are nuances from early on about the church and the church choirs and how Gavin used that to drive emotions and so on and so forth.
Correct, yeah.
I'm not talking religion here, but really my question is this, and nobody will say it because it's a difficult one to answer. My question is this. Was that environment of church, spiritualism, religion a front? Was it a way of moving away from the hardcore laundering and corruption that was going on? Was it to try and show, or was there actually a depth of religious and spiritual involvement and actual belief in? I'm asking it naively, but it's a question to be asked because it's asked of me.
Well, the question is not, it's not naive at all. You're not being naive at all. What actually happened was the church was used and religion was used to try and sugarcoat what was happening on the corruption side. So I'll give you an example. Praying over tender boxes. Why would the Lord want to bless something that was corrupt from day one? Why would that happen? Why would you call people around? So what you were doing is saying, all right, fine, we're going to ask God to bless these tenders, even though we've corrupted them and we've paid people for them. And, by having God's blessing over it, everything's okay again. So we put a bit of holy water on it and it'll sort it all out, So, yes, there was no, I don't believe, looking back now, I don't believe there was any, any moral goodness to this whole thing. I look back and I'm disgusted at the moment.
Okay, but then, Angelo, let's go back in time again here and look at the Watson family
Yes.
and the way they were brought up as well.
Yes.
I know that when I was growing up, there was a firm belief in the Eastern Cape that the only reason that Cheeky actually went and started playing rugby in the townships was because of the business that the Watsons had at that time, which was focused on the townships. So it seems like there seems to be almost this narcissism in the family.
Well, you've hit the nail on the head. You're the first one who's actually mentioned that to me about the businesses and the alliances with the black people. My question is very simply, Jeremy, has any black person benefited financially from the Watsons dealings? If you look at Bosasa, everybody thought it was a BE company. Everybody thought that, Bosasa was this wonderful company that was started off by the woman, empowering women and that. At the end of the day, where did all the shares filter down to? To one person and one group only, the Watson family. It's all been, in my opinion, it's all been a fake from day one. And it's because of exactly what you said. It started off in the townships when they had Dan Watson stores, and that's exactly what they wanted, because they were the only stores that weren't boycotted.
Whilst you were ill and you were recovering, and you were ill for a very long time, you mentioned, I picked it up in your first book, where you said that you actually, outside of Basasa's activities, you did have that there was direct knowledge of corruption going on and so on, and you actually knew all about it. My question is, were there other organizations working either pari passu or hand in hand with you or in the same direction, who were getting caught up and doing exactly the same thing that you as Bosasa was aware of, that you knew they're also doing it, but it is adjunct to us and it works together?
Well, that's exactly why Gavin motivated. He said, well, others are doing it, so we better do it as well. You're in Africa. Do what the Africans do. That's exactly what happened. So what was happening was, I mean, I'd often debates, long debates, and the reason I went back was because he said, well, we're going to stop it. And if we stop it, you coming back, you run the business like you know how to. You've done it for 19 years. I want you to take over. I'm not going to do the marketing anymore. I'm going to sit back. And after about 3 weeks, he said to me, well, nobody else has stopped it, so why should I? You know, everybody else is doing it. The other companies are doing it. The opposition companies are punting and bribing people. Why shouldn't we?
Yeah.
That was his attitude.
So, at a very strategic level, is this much difference to the state capture that the Guptas did? Obviously, this sounds like a lot of money. We talk about 12 odd million, a billion rand, but I mean, that was the whole, but is it that much different?
You know, it is different in the sense that on a service delivery way, they got good quality product at the end of the day. I mean, I must say that every single offender that was fed a decent plate of food. We trained up people. We trained in excess of 64,000 prisoners. I mean, in hard skills that they could go out there and actually find a job with the skill set that we had given them. So I think that was, in terms of service delivery, we provided a damn good service. But how the contracts were obtained through a marketing of Gavin Watson and his cohorts and his directors, that was wrong and that was illegal.
My question back to whistleblowing where I started, it's an interesting concept because at the end of the day is two things. One, a whistleblower goes and exposes, there's two types of whistleblowing. One, I'm in an organization, I see something out of kilter, I go and split. I say, hey, guys, I go and tell on the others. The other one is where you got personally involved in, is where you knew what was going on, you were part of it, and then you decided enough's enough. I'm now going to put this on the table. Are they that different? And if they are, do you believe the whistleblowers should be exonerated? Even if you knew all about it and you were part of it, should you be just said, okay, over and done, it's well done, clean slate? What's your opinion on that? Because that's a debate out there for people who haven't been in this situation, who aren't in. I'm asking you as guys in the firing line.
I think, Lance, you need to put in context. Let's just put in context the situation that we found ourselves. Number one is Jacob Zuma had been captured by Gavin Watson. Gavin Watson was paying 300,000 rand a month, plus visiting in Kandla, plus throwing birthday parties. You've seen the pictures. So Gavin Watson was captured. There was no getting away from it. Right up until when did he leave office? I think it was 2015, 2016. He was captured. You could do what you want. Jiba, who was running the NPA, and at that time, Sean Abrams, were captured by Gavin Watson. He was paying them monthly. So they were getting a fee. And Lawrence Rebi and the people within that circle of the NPA were captured. The Hawks were captured. There's recordings there where Johannes Gumedi turns around and says, well, we had a meeting with Zuma, and then we had a meeting with the Hawks, and they said, no, they're going to change the charge sheets. They're going to do A, B, C, and D, and we've got this whole thing under control. This whole thing had been kept quiet. We even had a meeting with Willie Hofmeyer where he said, well, sorry, chaps, there's not much I can do. The NPA is in disarray. We can't really help you. So that happened. And that's all prior to all the state capture and all that. The state capture is the last resort. So as whistleblowers, yes, I agree that we should all be accountable for what we were involved with. But I do think that due consideration must be given to the situation we were facing. People forget sometimes, and people are fickle. People forget that we were offered 50 million rand to keep quiet, to go away by the Watsons. It was a written offer. It was provided by the attorneys as a type of quasi-separation agreement. So that was given to us and offered to us. We chose not to do it. We chose to still continue and go to state capture. Now, that offer was made in August, the 21st of August, 2018. And we still went ahead in January and gave testimony, despite the fact that we've been offered 50 million rand.
Angelo, that 300,000 that was going to former President Jacob Zuma through
Yes.
through Mieni, through Dudu.
Yes.
How was that relationship from your perspective? Because thank heavens, Outer did the right thing. She's no longer allowed to be a director. Seriously, not a good person. How was your experience dealing with her and that Zuma because you saw that money flowing that way?
No, she commanded respect. She commanded. I mean, Jacob Zuma was like putty in her hands. Remember, Jacob Zuma spent 4.5 hours at Bosos's offices, which is unheard of. I mean, you don't hear a president visiting a private company for 4.5 hours, having lunch with people and that. And she was at that with him. And I must say, she actually rules the roost there. She wears the pants. He's not a Zulu man. She wears the pants in the house there.
Yeah, that's very, very, very interesting. I expected that answer, but thank you for sharing that with us. When they offered you the 29.5 million plus, I think it was 29.6 plus 1.2, if you said, cheers, take my shares or my interest and I'm out of here.
Yes.
And the way I understand, you said, look, I'm out of here. I'm going to do it right now. I didn't work out. Did you ever get any of that?
No, I got some of it, not all of it. So what happened was, initially there was a deal put on the table, okay, that said, listen, we want you, it was a golden handcuffs to stay in the company, and I needed to get out of that. And to get out of that, they offered me, gladly they offered me money to get out of it, and I said, all right, fine, I'll take it. And that was in March 2017, sorry. And they were supposed to pay the balance, and they never ever did. And purely because I said, listen, I'm still going ahead. You can't stop me from telling the truth. I'll take you can pay me, but I'm still going to tell the truth. And then they decided, well, they're not going to pay me the balance of the money.
A question, a personal question, feel free to answer or not. In hindsight, would it not have been better to say, take my shares, give me R1 and I'm out of here, as opposed to saying, I will take something, knowing what the organization had been through and knowing that you're going to be relentless in exposing everything? Personal question.
No, the reason was because we knew that there were other whistleblowers and that money was used to actually keep other whistleblowers alive. And it's accounted for, every single cent. We paid for school fees, we paid for people's bonds, we paid medical aids. We had a whistleblower couple that lost their brother due to the whistleblowing and ended up in hospital for 6 months, which we had to pay for. So, no, we knew, and it was a way for us to get legal fees together, which have now run out. So, please, if you're willing to make a contribution, you're more than welcome. You must understand, Lance, and you'll know, the legal fees that have gone together with us, with state capture alone, was in excess of 7 million rand.
Well, I saw what your affidavit cost.
Well, you saw exactly with a backstreet attorney that I was advised to use. And there was no affidavit that came out of that, by the way.
I know.
Not a single paper was produced by that attorney.
Last one. So a number of other people, you may well be aware, you may not, but if you are aware of others that should have joined the whistleblowing consortium, but are still out there, what about them? Should they not be brought to task, prosecuted, and put in orange overalls?
The other whistleblowers that were part of our team?
No. Those that didn't step up but were fully aware what was going on.
Well, there's people that were fully aware that ducked and dived. They were being investigated. They were subpoenaed, and they had very good attorneys that kept them out of court and kept them out of being questioned from Bosasa.
Yeah, very.
So I mean, yes. The problem is what has happened is the tables have turned. Now they've actually turned and used some of those people against us. You got one video of a chap by the name of Jacques Cancel carrying cash, receiving the cash. He's now turned. He's now become a whistleblower. All of us, only because the pressure's been put on him. It's wrong.
Yeah. Angelo, where do you go from here?
Well, I write books. What do I do? I write books and I appear on shows like yours. No, I mean, obviously we're going to try it. We've got a grouping together and we're going to try and make something and do something. I mean, that's all we can do is give it a bash and try and try and try. But, I was speaking to Cynthia Stimple, who wrote The Hijackers on Friday. And she said to me, she said, not a single whistleblower has been afforded the opportunity to get a job or to actually be helped out there. And it's actually sad. The way they treat whistleblowers, the way they look at us. And I mean, even the banks, it's pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic the way they treat us.
Angelo Agrizzi, thank you very much for your time once again. Angelo Agrizzi,
Thank you.
The former COO of Bosasa. His second book, Surviving the Beast, has just been released and is available at stores countrywide. It's the sequel to Inside the Belly of the Beast. Lance, thanks very much for your input.
No, Jeremy, thank you. And Angelo, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
That's it from us. If you did like it, then please share it and also subscribe and hit your notification button on Mansfield Today's YouTube channel. Thank you for being with us. We'll catch you tomorrow with our medical show with Dr. Vicky Skitter. Until then, goodbye.